Finals presented by YouTube. Nabil Karim alongside Greg Anthony. We got you covered as we get set for Game 6 of the NBA Finals. We're going to hear from both the Warriors and the Celtics, plus Jared Greenberg checking in from Boston. But the situation the Celtics are in, GA, right now, what are we expecting to hear from them?
Well, they've been really good when they've been desperate, right, in terms of facing elimination. And there won't be any more desperation than what we're going to see tomorrow night. They have to feel disappointed with how they played the last two games. I feel like their best players, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, have really made the game hard. They're playing in crowds. There's no motion. There's no ball movement. They're not putting pressure on Golden State's defense, putting them in rotations. And that's really, I think, led to their struggles. If you look at it purely from a turnover standpoint, when they don't move the ball and don't take care of it, they don't win. And that's been the case in this series. So we'll see if they can be efficient at home with that crowd behind them and try and force a seventh game.
And there's so many things to break down about the Celtics game here, but you got to start with this offense because it has been wildly inconsistent in these finals. What have you seen from the Celtics when they're good and when they're bad?
Well, I feel like when they're good, the ball movement's a lot better. The spacing's better. They're putting the Warriors in the rotation, and I think that really plays to their strength. It creates offensive rebounding opportunities and the chance to attack at the rim. But far too often, the live ball turnovers have been what's been the issue. I think they're averaging in the three losses almost 18 turnovers a game and giving up well over 20 points a game off those turnovers. And so that's been Golden State's best offense. And it's also been the reason why Boston finds himself in this 3-2 deficit right now. Let's see if they can make the adjustment and try to put some pressure on Golden State's defense, which then gives their defense a chance to have some success. Overall, even though Wiggins was great in that game, if you look at it, they've done a good enough job defensively throughout this series. They just haven't been good enough offensively, to your point, to really find themselves in a position to be playing for a closeout game here today instead of trying to play to survive.
Yeah, Boston 1-7 when turning over the ball 16 or more times this postseason. Last game, 18 for 22 Golden State points. Jason Tatum, I mean, it's fascinating because the last two fourth quarters, he's been missing a bucket each, right, in the last two fourth quarters. However, in elimination games this postseason, he has stepped up.
Yeah, and he's going to have to step up. He has not been really good at all in this series. Again, a lot of it has to do with shot selection. And, you know, the more I watched him play in this finals, I came away thinking, man, he's got to get physically stronger. I feel like he's not able to use that talent that he has because of the lack of strength. And Andrew Wiggins has done an incredible job. Everybody that's guarded him, they basically made him a tough jump shooting contested shot taker. And that's what the problem is right now. They don't get enough easy ones. And that, to me, comes back to the lack of ball movement and the lack of pressure that their offense puts on Golden State. So that's an area, it's not like they have to make big adjustments, but they've got to have a little more trust on that side of the ball and get the ball popping.
So there's a lot of pressure on Tatum to get it done. What about the other guys? Because, yes, Jaylen Brown's got to step up, but they need other guys like Al Horford, you know, White, Williams. They've been missing in action.
Yeah, those three guys haven't played well, but, again, a lot of times their impact is reliant upon how well their best players play. Because when you're not moving the ball and when you're not creating opportunities for those guys to either catch rhythm shots or play downhill, you're asking way too much of them. You know, Grant Williams is not a guy that creates his own offense. Al Horford at this stage, when he's spacing, he's not creating his own offense. And so, therefore, if your best players aren't creating advantages for them, they're going to struggle. And so, again, it goes back to their two best players. And those two guys have to have a better impact, and they've got to take care of the basketball. Those two guys, Brown and Tatum, combined for more turnovers than the Warriors had in the entire game in Game 5. So that's the area where the focus has to be for the Celtics.
Well, for the Celtics, again, 3-0 in the postseason when facing elimination. We're going to hear from Boston. We're going to hear from Golden State. And we're also going to be talking Andrew Wiggins. Again, having the game of his career in Game 5. Yo, his pops, he came to play too. We got that comparison next. The question was asked there by a reporter about Klay in Game 6 and what Steve Kerr thought about it. He said, well, I don't really think about it, but he knows one thing. Klay's a killer when he wants to be. And there is a lot of examples of it. And that's why the question was asked. 2016 versus OKC. He hit 11 threes in that game. At that time, that was a playoff record. Went for 41 points in the Western Conference Finals. In 2018, his team's down 3-2. Goes for 35 in that game. 6 against Houston, which was key to moving on. And then just this year in the playoffs against Memphis, 30 points as Klay hits 8 threes, looking like the Klay Thompson of old en route to, well, this point right now. And when you look at his numbers in Game 6, that is ridiculous, GA.
It's unreal that you could shoot that well, in the biggest moments. Game 6s typically are their closeout games, one way or the other. In the magnitude of that moment shows you how special he is and that ability he has to focus in.
And look at the respect he gets from another great scorer, Trae Young, believing Klay could go for 50 in Game 6. When warmed up. Here's Klay talking to the media right now.
For Game 5. I'm not sure if you have done the same here for Game 6.
I have not, but I know there's a lot of beautiful waters around these parts, so I'm not ruling it out, but it's probably a slim possibility.
Obviously, it's about Game 6 Klay. This is Game 6. Are you planning something special, considering you can win a championship this time?
I would like to have a big night and win the game, but, it doesn't matter what any of us do individually. The main goal is just to win one game. So I don't want to put any extra pressure on myself to live up to my name. I just want to go out there and play free, trust my teammates, and I know great things will happen if I do those two things.
On the right, Monty.
Klay, when people think Game 6 Klay, they always go back to the OKC game. Are you aware of your history in Game 6s overall?
I realize I'm on a really good streak right now of Game 6s, and I don't know how long that will last. Hopefully, obviously tomorrow, but it's obviously a nickname I earned. I want to live up to it, but at the same time, I don't want to go in there and play hero ball. I'm just going to go in there and be myself and do what I've been doing the last few games, and I know that will allow us to be successful.
Steve said he didn't know how to make sense of it, but he said one thing is that you have killer instinct. Mm-hmm. Is that part of what's going on when you're trying to close out a team?
Yeah, I just know after doing this for so long that killer instinct means just playing with incredible intensity, force, and will. And if you leave it all out there and you play intelligently, that's all you can ask for yourself. And try not to say, I'm going to score this many points, I'm going to lock this player up. But as long as you control what you control, and that's the effort and the focus factors, it's going to be a good night for us.
Next row back.
Kendra Andrews, ESPN. Klay, you guys have struggled to close out series at your first opportunity so far this postseason, and Andre just said clinching is the hardest game you'll ever have to play. What makes closing out a series difficult, but then does having a championship on the line, does that make it even harder to close it out mentally?
I don't think the championship we think about too much because we've talked about it, just being present, and you do yourself a disservice if you think about things that don't even exist yet. So on your first point, it is very hard to close out a series, and this is a very good team, and we know they're going to play with a sense of desperation. So for us to match that or exceed that, it's going to take the most effort we've had to give all year. But I can tell you this, we're all ready for the opportunity, and we're all very excited.
Klay, from a historical perspective, people probably remember this team as being, or this franchise, the Warriors, being a great offensive team, revolutionizing the game. But do you feel that defense is the foundation of championship runs for this group?
Yeah, I think it's a great mix of both, obviously. I mean, what gets overlooked is our versatility on that end. We have players who can guard every position. And we have obviously great defensive schemes as well as coaching with Mike B and the rest of the staff. They got us watching a lot of film, knowing the players' tendencies, and then we just got guys who play with great heart. So mix all those together, you got a potent mix.
Anthony?
You've had a few like kind of those quick hand steals. I was actually just talking to Andre about it. They're almost Iguodala-like steals. Do you feel like that's something as you're getting older, you're getting more confident or doing more often, trying more often?
I think I've always had hands, so not to Andre's level, but you know, I'll sneak a couple a game, and hopefully that will swing the momentum most of the times I do. Nice. Good
Right here
work.
in the front. Next seat in.
The Celtics talks about the officiating kind of getting into their head in Game 5, and I was just wondering how much do you guys feed off of that in game, noticing that your opponent is unraveling or losing their composure in the way that they did?
I don't think we focus on it too much, to be honest. We have a next play mentality, and we're just worried about, you know, getting a great shot up in those moments, not what the other team's talking about. So basketball is a very continuous game, and if you're out there talking to the officials the whole night, you might get in your own way.
Sam, over on the right.
Klay, Draymond on the other side was getting reflective and talking about your guys' journey. And within that, I was curious to get your perspective on Coach. You know, you got the guy who took over from Mark Jackson, is getting his feet wet after being an analyst. You got the guy who, you know, shepherded the championships and the KD years, and then the last couple where, you know, waiting for you to come back, the 15-50 struggles. What kind of changes have you seen in Steve as a coach?
I haven't seen many changes, to be honest. I think Steve's pretty much been the same since 2015. And, I mean, Steve's had such an incredible, unique career from player to coach, GM. He just knows how to gel talent together, and then he draws from his playing days, which is really cool to hear him talk about playing with Mike and Scotty and the Twin Towers in San Antonio. So the man's knowledge for the game is second to none, and that's what I love being around him for. He's got so many historical examples of how to get out of sticky situations, and he's a great leader, and he deserves every praise that comes his way.
Steph looking loose and ready for a potential closeout game on Thursday and his 4th championship in 8 seasons. He'll talk to Jared next.